Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sathology means a science of truth, study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means a science of fake or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Calling anyone's ancient history as mythology is the deepest academic aggression that anyone can show. And that has happened with Max Muller, Macaulay, and all the American textbooks, including Ziegler, who is very famous on traditions and encounters of the world cultures. By the way, for Americans from 8 onwards, they are only taught 3 pages about Hindus, which is the world's third largest faith. Islam has got 23 pages or 40 pages, so 23 to 40 pages. And rest of the book is Christianity or Judaism. And this is the importance which the American educators give to a knowledge about Hinduism, the world's oldest religion. Now, I call it a religion as well as a culture. I have a very, very special guest. That's what she does. She speaks about it and she tells others. And she has a unique program on the Independence Day of India. On the American Independence Day, I gave you a talk at that how there is only one book which tells you about freedom, and that is Bhagavad Gita. But on the Indian Independence Day, she has a unique program going on. So without delay, let us welcome Srimati Meenakshi Sharan.
Namaste, everybody. Good morning there. Yeah.
So, Meenakshi ji, one thing which comes to the mind is whenever we have seen that the Americans, they talk about Hinduism, they talk about everything like in the Max Muller's world. Like they say Hindoo, Hindu, that's exactly Max Muller's spelling in English. And they show that everything is backward. This is a general concept. And in India also the same thought is going on, like the Shraddh program that you want to do. They say, what is a backward batein kar rahe hain? Let's talk further. So tell me, what is modern and what is backward in this?
In Shraddh per se?
Yes.
Okay. So if we put it in very, very simple words, what we call dharma, we do not call it religion. Yeah? So what we call dharma is nothing but just living in accord with the cosmic law. That's it. And according to us, anything that does not fall in line with nature is adharma. So, and that adharma meaning an illness of kind. And also the best part is that it says that, the cure for all the illnesses also lies in nature itself. So you have to just abide by dharma, as in live the way nature wants you to live. 1. 2, like he just mentioned the Bhagavad Gita. So Sri Krishna says that in this ever-changing world, soul is unchangeable. And for that dharma, the principle of dharma that I told you, for that learning process, that what is falling in line with dharma and what is going against, falling in line with nature is dharma and going against nature is adharma. So for this learning process, we believe that a soul is reborn again and again. So in short, when science talks of cosmology or say multiple universe, that is already mentioned in our Veds, the oldest texts available on this earth. So they also mention multiple worlds. And obviously, one more interesting thing is that we believe that everything, like what you now say is 5 elements, we say that everything that exists is made up of those 5 elements. So we call them Panch Mahabhuta. So it is earth, water, you know it all, yes? So when you leave this body, like I said, only soul is unchangeable. So when you leave this physical body, then you have an astral body, then you have a causal body. So astral body traveling, if you read, you can actually find out that many a times that even we do, astral traveling when we sleep. Many a times you'll see that, suddenly when you're lying down, you'll suddenly feel that you're falling off the bed and you'll catch hold of something, which means that you were actually out of the body. The light body of yours was actually traveling and visiting places, because your mind can travel with the speed of light. Your body has limitations. So when you shed this body, that is the time when the soul just leaves it. The soul, which is the causal body, leaves it. And obviously, when it leaves, where will it go? Because of the multiple universe or many layers, like one may say, it will gradually transcend and move on, for it. And then also there's a period where it rests till it takes birth again. So also when we say it may take 200-300 years to be born again, meaning the earth years, not the years in the space. Yeah. So that is where the relativity of time is also proven. So when you actually, and another one small example that I'd like to give you about food, say, for example, when you're hungry or when you get an aroma of something very interesting or some food, you feel very satiated, don't you? So we believe that the souls which have left and the souls which have traveled and now are in some other space, some other realm, So whenever you remember them, there's a time once in a year that we remember them. They say that at that time, according to the planetary conditions, they are closer to the earth. So 1 full month, they are closer to the earth. So that time you actually, cook, say, for example, it was, suppose you had lost your father, your mother, anybody in the family that you remember, oh, my grandfather was fond of this particular food, or he liked this. So you do all those things that they liked, so the food that they eat or they liked, or something somewhere that they wanted to go, or something that they wanted to wear. So you do all those things in a month to kind of make them feel satisfied and please them and make them feel happy. So that one more thing here, that the soul carries with it all memories. Yeah. So it carries the memories of many, many lives, not just one life. Again, an example. Suppose nobody in your family paints, but somebody or a child in your family turns out to be a good painter, and you wonder that I could not even draw a straight line. How does he paint so well? Or somebody who sings very well. So any such, talent or any such, passion that you see in a person which is not seen in the family also is a proof that he has those memories from the past lives. So that is how we believe it, that the soul is carrying all those memories. So when somebody is departed, maybe he's left with some, unfulfilled desires. So we try to fulfill those for them, and we pay our respect to our ancestors in those times. So of course, it's a very lengthy subject, but in short, like I give you with a few examples, you'll get a little idea. And once you try to read more about it, you'll actually believe that it is true.
So one of the things which you are running a campaign on August 15th, Shraddh, for all the people who, last time also you spoke on that in one of the programs we had. Yes. And so the concept of Shraddha, now it's a big Sankalpa Divas. Yeah. The concept of Shraddha is mentioned since the time of Ramayana. It's mentioned by Sita Devi. They did in Siddhashram for Maharaj Dashrath. And Sri Ram personally did it also. And that's how this still goes on in Gaya, even today. Yes. And they make laddus, which were made similar to what Mother Sita had made. Yes. Now, but in modern, first of all, Americans don't know anything about it because they live in one life syndrome. And one life syndrome means they have no hope for the future. So everything they have to finish in one life, But for people, many Americans now, they personally believe in reincarnation. That has come from Bhagavad Gita, and because of ISKCON and many other organizations, it has spread very widely in USA. In fact, in 1970s, there was a threat that Hare Krishnas will become the religion of America. That was a common thing. That's how all the churches opposed. So you explained the process of reincarnation just now. Where does Shraddha comes in? And you also told the intermediary stage. Now this is like a Greek to most Americans who are watching it, and to many Indians also. Nowadays Indians ask the same questions which Americans ask. And I'm talking about the convent educated kids especially. And the word convent is a very Christian school, so they actually make you dumber than the rest by teaching you one life syndrome. So
Yes.
what is your explanation to these people who do not believe in Shraddha or reincarnation?
Again, I'd like to, speak in their language itself or the modern language itself. Firstly, like you said, that it is mentioned in Ramayana. It is also mentioned in Manusmriti, and Manu happens to be the son of Brahma. So it's got a huge, an entire chapter on Shraddha and how, what are the Shraddhas and how, what all can be done. And in very simple words, Shraddha meanings Shraddha. Shraddha is, what is it, devotion. So any task that you do with devotion is Shraddh. So it is nothing very hocus pocus. One. Two, um, one point that I'd like to mention here is that your a human being's knowledge is very limited. And there's enormous knowledge in this world which remains untouched in your one life. So something that you do not believe certainly does not mean that it does not exist. Yes. And then you have people like Dr. Brian Weiss, who's written about over 5, books. You have many books which are writing about the nearing death experiences and stuff like that. So when you read all those, and then you say, okay, the past life regression, all those therapies are very popularly happening in the West now. And you have lots of people, lots of psychologists who are actually treating people with, things like those. So, like I said, if you do not believe, does not mean that it does not exist. So I think that should be the answer to this, a short answer to this question.
The importance you correctly mentioned is also before, because Manu Ikshwaku Abravit. So Manu is the father, Ikshwaku one, Ikshwaku one, Sri Ram
Yes.
appeared.
Yeah.
And one of the things now, since you brought in Manusmriti, so now there is a big controversy against Manusmriti also.
Yes.
And mostly spread by the Western thought process cabals in India. I would call them cabals because they are not open, they have no brains, because they cannot accept logic at all. Most of them, they get stuck that the whole world started in 4,000 years back. They cannot explain Mohenjo-daro. That was a big surprise. They said, and whatever they find it against their logic and their finding, they dismiss it. So Shraddha is a very controversial topic for a Western person, as well as not all Western people, because most of our followers are dharmic, but it is more for the Indian educated youth. They say, why do we do Shraddha? So what do you have to tell them?
I think that answer to some extent I gave in your first question, but for your information, you even had Sylvester Stallone and his wife come to India, to Haridwar, and do the Shraddh for his brother. If you can actually see it. So there are many people. It's not that everybody believes or disbelieves. So when you can actually believe in a past regression therapy, that means you're already agreeing to reincarnation. One. Two, when you talked about Manusmriti or something, I'd just like to give a 2-bit over here for people who are not aware of it. In 1858, when we had come under the British Crown, that time we all know that William Jones had written huge essays. And all those essays were sent to the head offices in Great Britain. And he had also written to Warren Hastings. And those essays, he had mentioned the few out of the few many points, a few points that he had mentioned was that it is very, very important for us to create something like a Sanskrit, something like a Shastra where we praise Jesus. We talk of Jesus, and we, place him next to Brahma. So you have a lot of in many, in fact, these, evangelical schools, and you have some plays called Prajapati, which are actually being played in Tamil and in many other, languages all over the country. Some places in the world as well, they carry those dance dramas and all. So that is the outcome of that. So a Jesus Veda, a fifth Veda also was created, Jesus Veda. Also, this one book that was created, it was to be Sanskrit to Sanskrit, and then it was to be translated from Sanskrit to English, and it was to be distributed among the elite, the newly educated elite of Bengal. And then there was this Asiatic Society of Calcutta was formed, and then later, with the success of that Asiatic Society, it was open in Bombay, and then in London, and then Australia, US, everywhere. So they hired, that is where they had hired Max Muller, that is where they'd hired Macaulay, and William Jones was the president of that society. And all that fiction or all that fabrication that they had done of the time, a period of ours, as well as the, like he made Vikramaditya contemporary to Chanakya. Vikramaditya and Chanakya, no, sorry, I think Maurya, Chandragupta Maurya, are contemporary to Alexander. He's even has said to that they met, he's also proven that in some places. So later, many such works were created. Many people were hired to write a lot of such books, and a lot of such distorted material was actually fed into those books. And unfortunately, there was also a Sanskrit dictionary which was written, a 5-volume Sanskrit dictionary which was written by one Sanskrit scholar in India, who was paid about 20 rupees at that time in a school where he was working. And he was paid, if you compare it with today's time, he was paid about 20 lakhs of the present day, some 10 lakh rupees or something like that. No, I think some 10,000 rupees or something, which would be about 20 lakh today, for fabricating that Sanskrit to Sanskrit dictionary, which had all wrong meanings. So you still have a lot of Sanskrit teachers, even in India, referring to those. So you have a lot of students all over the world referring to all that material, because they had collected all manuscripts, from everywhere that they could collect, and they distorted and created a lot of fake material. And that is, what we are suffering. So it is going to be a huge revolution to be rewriting many such things and proving all those things to be wrong.
Nobody goes to the Shastra. Nobody goes to most of these propagandists don't go to any Shastra, nothing, nowhere else. They just speak on the basis of atrocity literatures.
Yes.
They blame oftentimes the Hindus that you have a very severe class system, which is, so the translation of caste into is a class, is a Portuguese class system. So, but the point is that the Shraddha, they will not go to the depth of understanding why Shraddha and why we should follow Shraddha. So what are the benefits of Shraddha for a family?
Firstly, like I said, Shraddha only means expressing your devotion to your ancestors at least once in a year. So why should one not remember or pay tribute or homage to one's ancestors? That is the first question. So whether you believe it or you don't believe it, because this has to go into a very, very lengthy discussion to understand it in depth. But if you just understand in plain and simple, language, why should you not do that? Why should you not show your respect to your elders or to your ancestors at least once in a year? And what do you lose by not doing that? Obviously, tell me one human being, tell me one person who feels absolutely complete and absolutely happy and satisfied in his life. There are many things which you suddenly shed off as paranormal or something like that. Many things where you don't find any answers. Many things where you do not know. You worked hard, you've done everything, or there are places when you say, why even the West believes it, no, haunted houses, haunted rooms, this and all this kind of a thing, some spirit and all. So what according to you is all the spirits and all? Here we are saying the same thing. We're just saying it in a very, very dharmic manner, that all those souls, whether they are in a human body or whether they are not in a human body or in some other, species, or whether they are not in a body at all and are resting somewhere in some realm, no space is empty. That is for sure. So when you, and like I said, when you get the aroma of something, you feel very satisfied. So similarly, if you have an ancestor who is not in a body but can actually just remember, because they can travel. You have the limitations. They can travel because they are in the light body. They are in the a soul which is a subtle body. Yes, so they can travel and they can probably come close to you. So there are certain things that have to be done to be believed. So even in West, if there's something that really bothers you, something that really disturbs you, all you have to do is just light up a lamp, and thank your ancestors and remember them and tell them that I have a certain problem and I need your help. So who are you praying to anyway? So there are spirits who will actually help you and guide you. And then I said, like, you read people like Brian Weiss. If you don't want to go to Gita straight away, you first go to people like Brian Weiss. Now, here again, what you said about, like you said about the distorted, derogatory literature that has been written for us. Why is it that this is the only society which has actually been attacked, to wipe off its civilization and its culture? Why it's only this society? What happened to the pre-Christian Europe? What happened to pre-Islamic Persia, to Egypt, and to many such countries? What happened? Where are they? We still exist. That means our belief system, somewhere or the other, is correct. And probably we have understood certain secrets of existence what the rest of the world hasn't understood. And as a part of this, like, forgetting your, or say, uprooting somebody's, culture, as has been done to us, this also could be a part of it. Like, why does the world, remember the Jew Holocaust once in a year, 27th of January? Why is it that the biggest mass migration in the world of 1947 in India, over 1 lakh people displaced overnight, why has that been brushed under the carpet? You think it is only an Indian doing? You think it is not because of the, the hand of the other, I wouldn't want to say that the communities or the international money that flows into the market to uproot us? Why is it that, forget anybody else. Okay, let's take the Muslim historian, for example, Farishta, Tariq-e-Farishta. Okay, that says that from around 1000 to about 1500, he says that the invasions damaged, or how many Hindus got killed, he gives the number. He says that the population around the thousands was 60 crore, which is somewhat 600 million, I believe. And by 1500, it was reduced to about 20. So 200 million, meaning 20 crores, meaning over 40 crore people were wiped off in those many years. And what happened in the following years? You have a history of 47, you have a history of 46, of 20, and n number of such, what do you say, riots, which have been called, like, say, the Mofla killings of Hindus is called an uprising. So who's done that? The Indians have done that? No. So who? And another very interesting thing I'll tell you is, like, the jihadis who were arrested, or who were, there were 50,000 jihadis who were arrested in 1920 for the Mofla killings. 50,000. 20,000 were sent to 20 or 30, I'm forgetting that figure, were sent to Andaman. About 10,000 escaped. About 2,730 or something were killed. So nearing a lakh people were mobilized, and in about 6 months, they killed n number of Hindus in just about that 5,500 square kilometer area. But what figures and what reports of the Hindu killings are we getting? 20,000, the maximum estimated. How is it possible that 1 lakh people go out to kill people, and in over 6 months only 20 are killed, where there's no police help, there's no nothing happening? Similar things in 1946, similar figures in 1947. So you just completely wiped off out of your memories. You can remember a Jew Holocaust, but you don't want to remember what you did to Indians. And you made us forget it. That is why I chose this, 15th August, especially because it is I would call it a resurrection day of the ancient most civilization, that is the Indian civilization. It was not a new nation in the making. It was an old nation. It was an ancient nation, which was suddenly being freed after so many years of, rules of invasions and tyranny and all. So that particular day, when everybody is emotional about it, I said, let's also make the world hear it. Let's also make people realize that this is what was done to this society. This is what was done to Hindu society. So that is why a Shraddh Sankalp Divas. Divas means day, Sankalp means a resolution, and Shraddh meaning offering your respect, your devotion, and your homage to the people, to the many, many crores, I think over 40 crores or whatever. 40 crores, like I said, is only till 1,500. It is much higher, the number. So many millions of Hindus who chose death over conversion. They did not choose to bow down to anyone. They did not choose to shed their dharma. Done something which is very natural, which is all encompassing. And one more small thing that I'd like to mention here, Aditya ji, like your students are also listening to it. In short, like I said, it's a huge subject. It needs days after days, but I'm just touching, the points, the outlines. So whenever anybody was persecuted in any part of the world, they all came to India. In the 7th century, the Persians came, the Syrians came. Yeah. Then even when the Crusades started in the 1900s, then even the Islamists came. So 9th century also, we have these Muflas, like I talked to you about. They came in the 9th century with 15 Islamic missionaries. And they had, literally begged the Raja of, that was Mahodayapura at that time, what is Kerala. And he asked permission for opening up one or setting up one prayer house for themselves. He was given the permission, and they ended up making 10 mosques over there. And this is 9th century I'm talking about. And by the 1920, when these riots happened, in that small area, Ernad, where these riots happened, they were already 60% of the total population. So can you believe it? What's happened to this country? We have suffered from every corner. Even when we have taken in the refugees, even when we've given asylum to people, all the persecuted people all over the world, there's this Kanai who comes, with 400 Syrians, and all the disturbances that you see at Sabrimala today are courtesy them, because of the poaching of the trees in the Sabrimala forest, the growing of the cannabis, the illegal trades and all that. So all the attacks on Sabrimala also are courtesy that. So these are just 2 examples that I gave you. From the 7th century onwards, we have been taking people in. And for example, the Zoroastrians, the Persians now, whom we call Parsi, who are, just amalgamated or a part of us, our family now, the Tibetans who are like family, anybody who's been, the Jews have been here, the Persians have been here, every community on this earth is found in this country. And India became a safe haven for everyone. And we were at that time also actually fighting and defending ourselves. We were putting up stout fights And we managed to fight those who were invading and the ones whom we had given asylum as well. And we still are a brave, a proud 80%, and we will never let that go. So this Shraddh Sankalp Divas is largely to make the world hear what happened to Hindus, and the Hindus are not going to, give up even now.
Thank you so much, Meenakshi ji. And I think that's a very, very nice way to celebrate the Independence Day. And I think I would want people to add the same message I gave on July 4th to Americans, that if you want to become independent, then start reading Bhagavad Gita. Because the rest, everything else makes your freedom, takes away your freedom. All the one book culture, one life syndrome, they actually make you a slave in your mind.
Yes, I'd just like to interrupt Aditya ji. I often say that you are getting somebody's brain out of his body, and you're just, feeding a book inside that brain, and you're just making somebody a complete dodo so that he cannot think on his own. Yes. And so when you say, so you're only running outwardly, there's no inward journey. And the biggest, what Hindus believe and what we believe, what we believe in our dharma, that the biggest duty towards anybody on this earth of a human being is toward himself, towards his own self. So unless and until he evolves, why else was he born a human? He could have just been born any other animal. Yeah. So when he's a human, that discrimination that he's been given to him, that wisdom he's supposed to use. So of course, go in and take your shelter in Shri Krishna.
Great point, because most of the one life syndrome guys and also one book culture guys, they actually make everybody a slave, literally. And so with that, we'll end the session. And thank you, Meenakshi ji. And I give you full support, as well as congratulations. It's the second year you're running this show, the Sankalp Divas.
Yes.
Second year. May we hope it becomes 100 years, so then my ancestors also getting benefited.
Yes.
Namaste.
Of course. Everybody's. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.